Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new Pick a Side live reaction. We are here after game one of the Western Conference Finals, where OKC thoroughly beat the Timberwolves off the back of an excellent second half performance. We have John Tortorelli in here in the building. Drew couldn't make it tonight, neither could Riv. Mr. Joel Dells is here as well. He's not in the best mood because his Celtics are not in the playoffs anymore. But John, the Nuggets aren't in the playoffs either anymore. So I think it makes two of you guys. I'm the only one with the team left in the playoffs. It feels good, but I feel bad for my brothers, man.
Don't get ahead of yourself, man. You gotta finish your job.
No comment.
Yeah.
John here said that I manifested a Jalen Williams Game 7 masterclass.
He did. I mean, you were talking crazy on him. I don't know. The way you've been moving this whole playoffs has just been nasty. You're
No
on
shame at all.
OKC, you're off OKC, you're on Denver, you're off Denver, you're off Minnesota, you're on Minnesota. I mean, every step of the way, you've been flip-flopping back and forth on J-Dub, on all of these guys. So, I mean, hopefully you stand your ground now. We said, during yesterday's show that, listen, you're picking Minnesota. Are you staying with Minnesota? And you told me yes. I'm wondering, after this ass whooping that the Thunder just gave them, are you still sticking with Minnesota?
Actually, Dells, we just witnessed something in the second half that may have convinced me. And I don't do this often. Usually I wait a couple games, Dells. I don't do this often. But after this game one debacle from Minnesota, where OKC just took full control in the second half, you know what I think I'm about to do, Dells? I think I'm feeling like leading you on and making you believe that I'm going to pick OKC, but I'm still sticking with Minnesota. And
thank God.
I have no doubt that they will win this series. 15 for 50 from three. A lot of great quality looks from three that didn't fall. I tip my hat to OKC. J-Dub had an excellent game. Shea had 20 points in the second half, and their defense was otherworldly. They only shot 23s, but they were able to do most of their damage inside the arc. I thought where the game really changed was when Lou Dort picked up his fourth foul, and so did Hartenstein, and OKC had to lean all the way into a one big lineup, and they were able to go 5 out. In that same time frame in the third quarter, Rudy Gobert was off the floor, and Minnesota's lack of rim protection was very apparent, and they chose the worst possible time to go cold from three. I believe in the third quarter, they shot 3 for 13 from three. And I'm looking at their shooters right now. Naz Reid, DiVincenzo, Alexander Walker, all shot 5 for 28 from three. 29% on the night. That's just not going to cut it. They were amazing in the first half. I thought Randall was awesome, and Anthony Edwards was playing composed, but Anthony Edwards did nothing in the second half. You look at Hartenstein on the floor. OKC was a +1. They had a 107.5 offensive rating, which is not good. It's an abysmal offensive rating. That's something that I spoke about when we were given our predictions, is that with Hartenstein on the floor, they shoot 30% from three. The offense is very hard to come by in a half court. But with him off the court, they were a +25, and they had a 124.6 offensive rating. I thought Chet had a big imprint on this game because he was getting offensive boards. He had 2 big ones over Randall, over Naz Reid. He was standing in that dunker spot and really making them pay. And his switchability allows them to play defense even though they are small, and he's a 7-1 guy that he can do everything. I don't know what it was with Minnesota. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but why did they continue to try to attack Chet Holmgren off the dribble drives? You saw they would pump fake from the three-point land. It was one that Dante had, and he just dribbled into the paint and tried to finish a reverse layup on Chet. And I just didn't know why they consistently tried to keep attacking Chet. It just didn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, I thought if anyone can do it, it's Julius Randle. And, we saw that in the first half just because of how big and strong he is. You could take Chet to the rim, but some of these other guys, like you mentioned, Dante DiVincenzo, trying to attack Chet off the dribble, that's just going to be a matchup that you'll probably lose more often than not. I know Chet has struggled offensively throughout these playoffs, even though today was, arguably his best game of the playoffs, considering, the stakes that are at game one. He came alive in the second half, but defensively, Chet has still been awesome, right? It's not like he has really lost a step in that regard. So attacking him, even though OKC always has great defenders out there, feels like a losing battle. This game was really a tale of two halves. In the first half, Minnesota came out lightning hot from three. I think they might have started like 10 for 19 or something insane. They were just really could not miss. Ant was getting it going. Randall started 5 for 6, and the Thunder were awful. Shea was terrible. He starts off 2 for 12. They can't really get any offense going. The half-court offense, especially, they were able to force a lot of turnovers, which is why it was a close game going into halftime. But I think what we saw is in the first half, Minnesota wasn't really playing at their ceiling, but they were playing a good brand of basketball outside of the turnovers. They were generating open looks. Anthony Edwards was playing well. Julius Randle was playing well. And the Thunder were lagging behind, and it was still only a 4-point game going into halftime. And the second half, that flipped, and the Thunder were playing their best brand of basketball, and the Wolves were not. They were missing some open looks. I will say that. They did take 53s tonight, which seems like a shit ton from them. But when I look at who was taking the threes, like Randall was still efficient. Ant was 3 for 8. It was Dante DiVincenzo going 3 for 12, who has not been a good shooter so far in these playoffs. Nickeil Alexander-Walker going 2 for 9, who the numbers look good in last series, but he really only had one great game shooting. Every other game, he shot like 1-3. So it really wasn't someone who was consistently hitting shots. It was just one outlier game for him. But everyone else, I guess maybe except for Mike Conley, who goes 1 for 5. But I mean, like Randall's hitting his shots, Ant's hitting his shots, and Naz Reid's the one guy you have to point at saying this is someone who has been our best shooter in these playoffs. Goes 0 for 7 from 3, 1 for 11 from the floor. If Naz Reid is giving you this type of production, which he won't going forward, he's just way too good of a player for that to happen, the Wolves are really in trouble. But the way the Thunder were able to turn on that second half, defensively just completely, taking away Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, they were basically non-existent in the second half, both of those guys. And then offensively, Shea finally got it going. I was surprised the Wolves weren't setting more doubles, more hard doubles, trying to trap Shea, trying to make life difficult on him, because for the most part, if he's seen one-on-one action, listen, Jaden McDaniels is fantastic. Jalen Clark got some minutes. He plays good defense on Shea. If you're going to play one-on-one against Shea, he's going to get his. Like, I don't care how great of a defender you are. Shea, more often than not, is going to be able to get to the rim. He's going to be able to draw a foul, or he's going to be able to create space and hit a step back around the free throw line like we saw multiple times tonight. So these two halves really show me, when everything's clicking for the Thunder, yeah, they could blow you out. But even when things aren't clicking, it still feels like their floor is so high because of their defense and the turnovers they're able to generate. They could still stick in games until, an SGA gets going or a J-Dub hits a shot. So it was a really impressive win for the Thunder. And this is, another series where I mentioned it on yesterday's show. The team with less rest, doesn't have the rest advantage, gets that game one win. The Thunder certainly needed it, right? You need to protect home court. The crowd was awesome tonight, but a really impressive win for the Thunder all around.
Definitely. This game was a tale of two halves. You have Oklahoma City in the second half dominate defensively. And it felt like early on in this game, like you guys highlighted, Julius Randle really set a tone, whereas Anthony Edwards rolled his ankle early in the first quarter, went back for the early second. And it felt like all day today, especially later in this game, Anthony Edwards struggled to create separation, particularly down the stretch when Alex Caruso was hounding him. And in games like tonight, it's more important that the bench steps up and delivers. And when you look at Naz Reid, DiVincenzo, and all, those are three high variance, high volume 3-point shooters. And they went a combined 5 of 29 tonight from 3-point land. As you guys highlighted, it felt like Naz Reid settled a lot. His shots were short, which is kind of disappointing considering the rest advantage the T-Wolves had coming into the series nonetheless. But the same goes for Dante DiVincenzo. It's just easy looks that he's missing that I feel like as the series progresses, he will start to hit. Nickeil is good defensively, just didn't have it offensively. And in a game like tonight, it's all the more important that Julius Randle plays a complete game because he was awesome in this first half. But later in the second, he really was. I think he took 3 shots up until the end of the fourth quarter compared to the first half where it's 5, 6, and 3-point land. And I felt like for Minnesota, it did kind of highlight just how much they're going to need from him in this series throughout. So I give a lot of credit to Oklahoma City. Give a lot of credit to their bench. Kenrich Williams stepped up, was great. His 10 minutes. You had Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso step up. But I really felt that was a difference in tonight's game because quite honestly, up until the start of the second half, it felt like this was going to be a way closer game than a 20-point, blowout.
Well, that's the biggest difference is the depth and the role players showing up for OKC and the role players not showing up for Minnesota. Nas Reed didn't play well. Dante didn't play well. Alexander Walker didn't play well. And those are three of your best bench players. And for OKC, Kaysen played well. Caruso played well. And Kenrich Williams came in and was the Julius Randle stopper for a couple of possessions. I disagree with your point, Dels, about what you said. If OKC's playing their best brand of basketball, they blow you out. Well, that also has to simultaneously happen when Minnesota's playing their worst brand of basketball. They missed a ton of wide open threes in the third quarter. And Julius Randle didn't have an impact scoring the ball, but when he was driving to the basket, he had a lot of potential assists that he was kicking out to shooters, and they were just missing. There were so many shots that Dante missed, that Alexander Walker missed, that Mike Conley missed, where they get back their own offensive rebound and he gets multiple looks at it. And he's not able to make one of them. So, yeah, OKC plays their best and OKC and Minnesota plays their worst. It's going to end up being a blowout. But I don't think Minnesota's going to play this poorly. I think that they got quality looks. They shot 53s, and I thought more than half of them were good. And you live with those results. I would say about if we can wait and see until NBA.com comes out with the wide open and open shots, maybe it's going to be 35 plus. That's what I'll put my money on. That is that many open shots that they had in this game that they just simply didn't capitalize on. I think OKC, when they go with one big and they go with a spaced out floor, Chris Finch did a terrible job at managing Rudy Gobert's minutes down the stretch, because Rudy Gobert, despite him having offensive limitations, he was a -5 compared to a -20 when he was off the floor. When he was on the court, they had a 100 defensive rating. When he was off the floor, they had a 134.1 defensive rating. OKC, when they saw no Rudy Gobert on the floor and they were able to space out the defense, Shea, J-Dub, they relentlessly attacked the paint and there was no rim protection whatsoever. Now, you pick and choose certain things. If you want more spacing out there and you want Nas Reed to be out there so you have more three-point shooting opportunities, he has to be hitting for that to be worth it. But Gobert overall, I thought, had an impact defensively in this game in the first half. And once the game started to slip away from them, Chris Finch didn't think about putting Gobert back in the game, because the only way they were going to get in it is if they shot a ton of threes and made a ton of them. So at that point, he became obsolete. But I thought the way that he managed his minutes, like after OKC made that run in the third quarter and they had back-to-back buckets on Nas Reed and Randle and just penetrating that defense, and there was no rim resistance whatsoever, I thought that was a moment that Chris Finch was going to put Gobert back in the game, but he never did. I think he's going to be huge in this series to negate Chet's impact in it, because we see that already. The double big lineup for OKC makes their half-court offense clunky, and I thought Minnesota did a tremendous job guarding their half-court offense. It's when you're having a ton of turnovers, you're being loose with the ball. They had 17 turnovers today, and in the first quarter, they had 7 fouls and 7 turnovers, and they were still up by 3 to end the first. So even in the first half, although they were up by a couple points, I thought Minnesota played far from their best game at any point. I thought they were lucky to be up after the first half because they were sloppy with the ball and they shot well, but they were 10 for 28 after the first half. And they most of those quality shots continued in the second half. It's just they didn't go in. And then when you take Gobert off the floor, defensively, you're going to be at a major disadvantage.
Definitely. That's when the dam broke open for not only Chet, but also J-Dub and Shea. I mean, Shea starts this game 2 of 13. It felt like early on they're going to be able to contain him. But of course, as the game went on, you get Jay McDaniels in foul trouble. He ends up fouling out in the fourth quarter, and he's eventually going to start to catch up. I feel like the other thing, too, for Minnesota was, as you highlighted, like, it's very rare for the bench and Anthony Edwards to play as poorly as they did today offensively. And I felt like, while it was a 26-point, game at the end, when you look at the entirety of the series, I did take Minnesota to win. I think it could be a 6 or 7 game series for sure. It really comes down to Ant-Man stepping up, and I think he will. But tonight was more a matter of relying on not only Randle, but all of those shooters to play well. And it just wasn't their night at all on the road.
Yeah, they were generating good looks. I don't disagree with that statement, Joel. I thought they were getting a lot of wide open looks, especially from Dante. But I mean, we have a pretty decent sample now, right? What's Minnesota played 10 plus games at this point, and Dante just has not been able to hit his shots really. Nas Reed, I have no doubt that he'll be able to bounce back. He's been too good of a shooter all season, including the playoffs. But for the Thunder, I think the double big lineup is gone. for the most part. I think they went to it obviously throughout the season. It was, a prominent point in their season, but especially against Denver, when you're going up against Nikola Jokic, I just think they want that size and physicality and rebounding out there. So having Chet and Hartenstein makes a lot of sense. But going up against the Wolves, like they could have lineups, of course, where they have, like a Randall, two of Randall Reed and Rudy Gobert and play big. And of course, Jaden's like 6'10", but you don't really have that much of a physical dominant, player around the rim, obviously compared to Nikola Jokic. So they can get away with playing one big, whether that's Hartenstein or Chet, and they both give you, obviously different things. Even though the numbers weren't great for Hartenstein, he was still, at least efficient offensively, and he was making some good plays defensively. But this was a game where Chet really was able to step up. I think we've been waiting for a game for Chet to show out into this all-star caliber player that we know he can be. And throughout these playoffs, he's had moments here or there, but this really felt like a game for him that he could go into game 2 and the rest of the series with some confidence, because he started this game off terribly as well. Like he started off missing his first few shots. He went 0 for 2 from the free throw line the first time he was there, had a couple of bad fouls, but he was able to turn it around, especially in that second half, and was a huge impact for them. But I do agree with you, John. I think Anthony Edwards is somebody who, when you're looking at his second half, what he does, he needs to be way better than he was tonight. I think he had 6 points, 2 for 5. He had more turnovers and assists in this game. Just all around a pretty poor performance from Anthony Edwards. And even though in that first half he was able to outduel Shea, by the time the game's over, you're looking at him, it's like, yeah, Shea didn't have the most efficient night, but he had 30. He gets to the free throw line 14 times. I know that's a conversation people are going crazy on Twitter, but that's Shea's game. He's going to get to the line. He's going to draw fouls. He's going to make it difficult on officials. And it's not like they were all bullshit fouls. There was definitely some fouls in there. So I thought, Shea did a really good job. 10 for 27 is a bit misleading because he started, what did you say, John? 2 for 13.
Yeah.
So he finishes the game 8 for 15 in the second half. That's a much more Shea-like stat line there. And they needed him down the stretch because this was a game going into halftime. This was even a game, going into the fourth quarter where it was, by far than over. It wasn't like the Thunder came out and blew out the Wolves by 20 points in the third. This was still a game, even with a few minutes left. There was a stretch that the Wolves could have went on, but the Thunder made timely stops. They hit some big shots down the stretch. And overall, I think it was a really good performance from Shea and Chet.
The last thing I got to say about this game is whenever OKC plays, there's going to be a lot made about the officiating of it. Minnesota has to get over it. They can complain as much as they want. It's not going to help in any way what the refs call or what they don't. I thought the ankle bothered Anthony Edwards, and it was a big reason why he wasn't driving to the basket. I think with a day of rest, he'll be better. But OKC makes you second guess so much when you drive to the paint because they have a ton of defenders that swarm and they get their hands near the ball. It's like you take one dribble inside the arc and you have 3 players reaching for the ball. And it makes it very tough on offensive players to balance out when I should pick up this dribble or keep it alive because OKC is so good at generating steals and creating havoc. So there's a balance that has to be figured out. And I think the only way Minnesota wins this series is exactly how they play tonight, but hitting their shots. Like, in order to win the series, they have to take 53s because they're not going to be able to consistently get inside the arc with as much havoc as OKC causes. Minnesota was visibly frustrated with the physicality that was allowed, with the contact that was allowed, and they have to get over it. It's as simple as that. That's how OKC plays. They've played that way all season long. They play physical, and you got to get over yourself. And I understand the frustration because it feels like what's allowed on one end isn't allowed on the other end. If I think there was this late out, maybe it was to start the fourth quarter or late third, but Shea drives on Anthony Edwards and he bumps him and then fades back and hits a shot. It was an and one, and that was a foul. And it's like, but Shea created the contact first, and it's a foul on Ant. So simultaneously, as OKC is playing overly aggressive on defense and Minnesota's frustrated at the lack of calls, on the other side, they try to play a physical style of defense, and OKC is getting rewarded calls for that. So I think Minnesota has to balance out their frustration and not let it get to them, because once it started happening, you could see that Minnesota just started settling for a ton of shots. So it's on them to understand that balance. But OKC, that's how they play. They're a physical style defense. They're going to lean their body on you. They're going to try to move you off your spot, and they have to balance that physicality out. And we just have to see over the course of this series what is going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. Because I doubt that after this game, there's going to be quietness from Minnesota's side. I'd be surprised if somebody didn't talk about it.
It's probably going to be a storyline throughout this entire series. And I do believe that it's going to test Anthony Edwards pretty noticeably. When you look at, of course, the rim protection Oklahoma City has with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein to the bulky perimeter defenders that they have that can contain him, whether it's Stewart, whether it's J-Dub, then if Kaysen and Alex Caruso, all those guys are going to defend physically, and they're going to be able to get a lot of contact without actually committing a foul. Whereas on the T-Wolves side today, it was Shea bumping and getting Jaden McDaniels off balance a lot, to where those foul calls were a lot more obviously officials, a lot more easy for him to get in foul trouble. So that's where, as someone that really kind of wrestled between these two teams, that's where I have the most concern, just the amount of different options. And this is what makes the Thunder such a special team. It's why they won 68 games. It's nothing new. We saw this last year's. The amount of options that they can put on your best player defensively, while simultaneously the T-Wolves lack that reliable shot creator from the perimeter, because Dante DiVincenzo sure as hell has not been at this postseason. I think I'm just hoping at some point he builds off that Warriors series. And then after that, Julius Randle is really an intermediate type of creator, not really necessarily a perimeter creator. So I think that's where Minnesota's going to have to really start to troubleshoot this with Naz Reid and Dante both playing at a higher level. And if they don't, the series can end a lot more prematurely than I thought coming in.
Yeah, they go 15 for 50 again. It's going to be tough. But I think you're banking on Naz. I think that's the one guy you're pointing at, saying he's someone that's been a reliable shooter. He's been a reliable shooter in the playoffs. He's not going to go 1 for 11 and 1 from 7 for 3 again. At least you hope. And again, he was getting some open looks. It wasn't like he was forcing 7 threes up there. There were a lot of driving kick situations, a lot of just passing the ball around the perimeter, leading to open shots. Just wasn't falling tonight.
We have some super chats. Ulysses Ventura, Wolves don't got Jokic. Thunder defense won't have to triple team anyone, so that defense will be feasting every game with constant pressure and energy. And that led to 53s tonight, and they were pretty good looks. So they don't have Jokic, but the Wolves have so much more options to shoot the ball than the Nuggets do.
Yeah, for sure. They don't have Jokic, but they have more than like 2 guys you feel good about that could actually either, create or hit a 3. Nuggets have, I guess, maybe 3, maybe 4. Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown.
Well, both these teams are shooting, if I can double check this. They're shooting the same percentage from 3 this postseason, the Nuggets and the T-Wolves, 35%.
What are the attempts?
I mean, it's going to be a little bit different,
Probably
but
the Wolves.
I'll have to look it down in a second, but that's really neutered by the Lakers series and how poorly they shot at the end.
Neutered. I like that, John.
Jay Greedo. Caruso threes felt like gunshots, and throughout the whole playoffs, Wolves' weakness has been foul trouble. I think it will cost them this series.
Caruso's been great. He's been hitting threes throughout these playoffs. Those Thunder games, the Nuggets games, he was hitting some big shots. Yeah, I think the foul trouble is going to be a problem. The Thunder, with Shea being as gifted as he is when it comes to drawing fouls and getting to the line, especially when you're considering some of the guys are going to be on him, whether that's McDaniels, whether that's Anthony Edwards. You got to be careful.
If Jaden McDaniels in foul trouble for this entire series, I think that's another huge red flag for Minnesota. They need him on the offensive end too. I think it goes both ways. They need everyone to contribute at a high level, and I feel like we've known for a long time that's been Jaden McDaniels' biggest kind of weakness that he's still to overcome to a degree. So that's going to sound a monitor.
Yeah, John, just had to squint, make sure I'm reading these correctly. 7 points from Jaden, 5 shots. And Jaylen Brown, though.
He only played 24 minutes.
Jaylen Brown.
One's in the playoffs and one is not.
So. One's a finals MVP.
Fake finals MVP. Santos goes Caruso over Gobert.
Hey, if there's any run you got to be pressing that, it's going to be this run, because Caruso has been out of this world good, but Gobert's been good too.
Do you think that there's validity to Caruso has had a reputation as an elite defender for so long that he gets away with more contact than the average defender?
Probably. I think that's the case for everything. I think that's the case for Shea driving. I think that's the case for defenders who have a great reputation. Like Jaylen Brown last year, I feel like was super physical in the finals, but he's kind of known for being this big physical defender, so he gets away with it. I think your reputation goes a long way. There's a reason why they call it a superstar whistle, Because if you're a superstar and you miss a layup, the refs are like, oh, probably got fouled, right? And you see a ton of calls that get called late like that.
I mean, it's tough to say. I'd really have to look at him more closely. But when he's defending Julius Randle and Nikola Jokic, he's giving up, especially in Jokic's case, 6 inches and damn near 100 pounds is what it feels like. So you're going to have to make up ground whatever way you can.
So when it's scoring Jokic, he's giving up like 150 and 10 inches.
I thought the play where I felt like the game was officially over was when Julius Randle had the ball kind of at the elbow, and I think he was posting up Dort, and he kind of gave him a bump, and on that second bump, he really put his shoulder into it, and he just fell down, and OKC got in transition and got a basket. I think Minnesota was visibly frustrated with the contact that was happening tonight, and I think it got in their head, and they stopped playing. They ran a basketball in the fourth. Vale goes. Y'all see that photo of Wemby?
Getting a little brolic. Not quite Marvin Harrison Jr. levels, but looks like he put on some muscle so far. I'm assuming that's the photo, unless there's another photo I don't know of.
That is the photo. He did put on some muscle.
Definitely has. And this is only May. He's got another, 4 months, 5 months.
Caesar Isaac donated $1, then donated $2. Dell's Ant fourth quarter 0 points out of shape.
I think this is the very common he was just asked tonight kind of vibe for me.
He just wasn't good in the second half. That's what it comes down to.
Wasn't.
Now Hustle goes, Joel only went with the Wolves because the Knicks would get dog walked by OKC in 5. Also, Kenrich Williams saved us.
Kenrich Williams is awesome.
There's a chance. There's a chance that OKC game 1 momentum, they just take it and run with it, and they're winning the entire championship, and they're going to be crowned at the end. Last year, they won game 1 against the Mavericks. They blew them out in embarrassing fashion. Victory laps were had after game 1. Dallas had no chance. And, Dallas proceeded to have a great series, and PJ was awesome. A role player that nobody thought was going to step up. So we need Dante or Nah.
Yes.
To be
Who's
PJ.
Who's the PJ for this Wolves team? Who's it going to be? Someone's going to have to do it.
And then over the last couple of games, to close it out, Luka was phenomenal. SGA fouled PJ Washington in game 6, got him at the free throw line he sunk those free throws, and then they just put up a half court heave, and that was a series. In 6 it ended. So I'm just saying, game 1 dominance. Minnesota, to me, in the first half felt like they could hang, and I think they still match up with OKC.
Who's better, last year's Mavs team or this Wolves team?
I think they have Luka. That's kind of where my mind goes to.
Guy who's not in the playoffs right now.
Luka didn't play that well, so in that series as a whole, it was inefficient.
Didn't play well in the finals.
I don't know. I think the Wolves' depth in this series is much better, but I think what Dallas had is they had Gafford and Lively for 48 minutes, and that rim protection was very huge. And SGA was not a good finisher in that series. Like, he was good in the mid-range area like he usually is, but around the paint, a lot of his shots were not going in, and I think that rim protection bothered him. And in this series with Minnesota, you go from Gobert and then you go to Naz Reid, and there's just really no rim protection at all with that. So I think they just had better defensive personnel to contain the shots, I would say, around the rim. Minnesota
that Mavs team was better.
Yeah, that Mavs team, I mean, OKC got lucky that Luka didn't stay with the Mavericks, I'll tell you that. They really did. Because had Luka stayed with the Mavericks with the team they had this year, my goodness, John, could you only imagine? Could you only imagine? But I heard he's going to Denver next. How would you like that, John?
Who are you talking about?
Luka. He wants to team up with Jokic. A little bird told me.
How much help does this guy need? He's running to LeBron. He's running to Jokic.
Well, he didn't run to LeBron. He got traded there.
Crazy.
Blindsided.
Crazy.
He got blindsided.
Nuts.
Luka and Jokic want to complement one another, but neither here nor there. It'll never happen.
You said they wouldn't or they would?
They would not.
I think both of them are too smart for it not to work.
Like LeBron and D-Wade, that's fair. But wouldn't be a great fit at all.
It would be a little funky at first, but yeah, LeBron and D-Wade, took them a year, but they got it figured out.
Yeah, and just imagine how good the defense would be for that
and
team.
Even still, them not figuring out was them going to the finals, but weak East.
Hey man, Jokic, one of the few top 15 players ever that has never really had a teammate like that. So just imagine, John. But right now, what you have to sink yourself in is Christian Brown potentially getting 30 million. Is it?
That's what Mark said. I don't know. That seems like a lot.
30 million's rich because the Jokic tax, but I mean, you're gonna have to pay him 25 million a year, 4
I mean,
years.
D-Wade got
24
like
years old.
33, 34. That feels, you know what I mean? I feel like Brown would be a little bit below that.
Anything above, like, I think DeAndre Hunter is a good barometer for the type of contract extension Brown should get. If he's getting more than that, it'd be like the Joker tax is
What
getting
Hunter get?
4 years, 90. I think a little more than that, given
Yeah,
it's
that
2
feels
years
right.
after.
22,
Yeah.
23 a year.
Freeholder 33 goes, basketball lost tonight. Damn you, SGA free throw god.
Oh man, no comment.
When do you guys think the MVP announcement is going to be?
Why haven't they announced it?
I don't know. It's
Do
so
we know?
stupid.
Have they given a reason?
It would be so beautiful if they announce it game one of the finals. Let's say OKC makes it and they're facing the Knicks. And Brunson just uses that moment as just the most extreme form of motivation. Underdog status.
MVP been announced like early May the last couple of years.
Usually, yeah, it gets announced pretty early.
Like a round ago.
Yeah.
Everybody in the chat, I want the chat to write down. What's your guys' prediction?
They said it's announced on Thursday, according to Lion Leon.
Okay. So game 2.
Which would make sense.
So chat, what is it? Is it OKC in 5? I see a comment saying OKC in 5. Let's see if you guys.
I still got OKC in 7. I think the Wolves are going to get
sticking with that.
Yeah.
OKC in 7. Oh, Mr. Dells is expecting a big bounce back. Game 2.
The Wolves aren't some pushovers. They're a good ass team.
So what? Game 2, John. Who do you have?
Game 2, I got Minnesota. I'd like the ice up the ankle and play better adjustment for Minnesota. And I would also go away from. It's tough. I would go away from Conley more in this series, and I would really try to lean on Devo catching a rhythm. But it's really going to be more a matter of just like we highlighted before, shooting variance and getting more dribble penetration and then taking better shots around the rim.
Do we get more Jalen Clark minutes going forward?
I'm hoping so.
They were fine today.
Terrence Shannon Jr. was electric in their comeback against them in the regular season. I think they just need to go with more athletes and size, but the alternative to that is you maybe have them playing a little reckless and having turnovers in, and OKC gets out and run. So there's a balance that they have to play. I think MVP gets announced Thursday. That makes me lean with Minnesota. Tight nail biter, game 2 win. Anthony Edwards looking at that MVP announcement and says, "Oh yeah, you the MVP? All right, I'll show you." And then he goes out there, has 35 with a win, 8 3-pointers made. An excellent Anthony Edwards game, one of the best playoff games we've seen in his career. I'm banking on that. And it all starts with the MVP announcement.
All right. We'll
Do
see.
you have OKC?
I got game 2. I think OKC goes up 2-0.
Okay, nice. We have 2 Minnesota picks, 1 OKC pick. I like it. Some variety here. That's going to do it for us on the live stream. Thank you guys for pulling up 432 live viewers. Make sure you guys are liking the stream, liking the video, commenting on it as well. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.